Chèvre in French means goat cheese. And that's really all it is. It's a nice, soft, spreadable cheese. It's the cheese that the Arab merchant discovered when he walked across the desert. And it's a wonderful cheese. It's versatile. We can use it in so many ways. It can replace cream cheese. It can be used in cheesecakes. It can be used as dessert. It can be used just as a log for an appetizer. It's an easy cheese to make, and it really pretty much makes itself. So we're going to start with the most important thing we've got to cover here is sterilization. Every time we make cheese, we've got to worry about sterilization because we've got all this bacteria that we're trying to get to work, and what we don't want are outside bacteria getting in there. But sterilization is really simple. I don't want you to stress about it. I really want you to stop and think about, what cheese am I making? Am I making a cheese that I'm going to eat in 20 minutes or an hour or in the next 5 days? Because if you are, then those microbes, those little bacteria that get involved in your cheese really don't have time to cause any problems. So in that situation, I just make it just like I'm making chili. Just, it's clean. I've washed it, I've cleaned it, that kind of thing, and I do some quick sterilization of the pot itself. If I'm making a cheese that is much more advanced, where I might not get to eat it for a year or two, then of course I'm a little crazy about it. I've got, gloves on, I've boiled everything, and I'm, scrubbing everything down with Clorox. But for these basic beginner cheeses, I don't want you to stress about sterilization. All we do is take our pot, enamel, glass, or stainless steel. I generally use stainless steel. I find glass is really heavy. And we just fill it with water to cover up to as high or higher than the amount of milk we're going to use, and we boil it for 20 minutes. And we just put in our curd knife if we have to use one. We put in the spoon we're going to use. I love skimmer spoons. And we just boil them for 20 minutes. And as soon as we're done boiling it, voila, we're done sterilizing. So then we're just going to pull out everything because we boiled this. We've got a good sterilized pot. We're going to get rid of all of our equipment. And you notice I'm using a dairy cloth over here. The dairy cloth is really going to keep things from getting onto my counter, and I use a lot of dairy cloths in my cheese making. Any white bar towel, white cloth will do, and that way when you go to wash it, you just wash it in bleach, no detergent. We don't need Mountain Fresh cheese, so we just wash all the things we use in our cheese making. That drain bag, our dairy cloths, everything like that is just washed with a little cap full of bleach, and that keeps everything clean. So we've sterilized this, and what we're going to do, rather than waste this water, we're going to use it. Many, many recipes that you use are going to tell you to submerge your cheese in a water bath. And this is what they mean. They mean to take this water that we just sterilized the pot with, and we're going to dump it in our sink and fill the pot. So we've got our hot water sterilized over here. We're just going to dump it into the sink so that we're ready for our water bath. So now I've got my sterilized pot. I've got my goat milk and all the supplies I need to make some wonderful chèvre. Again, this is a super simple cheese. I tell people, I can make this during, a quick commercial break. It's a 5-minute cheese. It makes most of the work is all done by itself. It makes itself. It's a really, no-brainer. So we're going to start with our milk. We're just going to pour it right in. I'm making a half a batch. Generally, you're going to make it with a gallon of milk, but we make so much cheese around here that I've started making half batches because I make it so often during the week with all the excess milk we have. So we've got a half a gallon of milk, and we're going to heat it up to 80 degrees. So we're just going to throw it over in our sink, put it right down in there, and we're going to let it heat up to 80 degrees. It's only going to take about 5 or 6 minutes. In fact, we have a little too much water in here, so I'm going to get into this hot water quickly and get some out so we can make sure our pot doesn't float. You want to watch for that. It happens pretty regularly. If that pot floats and water gets in there, it's going to ruin your cheese. So you want to make sure you don't have too much water. All right, so we've got it in there. One of the most important things that you're going to notice about cheese making that's really different than what you do at home with your regular cooking is how we stir our cheese. One of the things you want to remember at all times is that cheese making is science. It really is more than just cooking, and we have to constantly worry about the molecular structure of the milk. And with that, we have to think about how we stir it. If you were to be really rough and stir like this, you're going to really tear up the molecular structure, because if you looked at milk in a microscope, you're going to see a whole bunch of balls, little water balloons filled with lactic acids and proteins, and we don't want to break them. If we break them prematurely, we're going to have dry, crumbly cheese. So how we avoid that is always doing a gentle up and down stirring motion with our cheese. So it's a good habit. I do it all the time. We're just going to go over here and just do this gentle up and down stirring motion to help disperse the milk around so that we're not scalding or getting too hot. We're going to bring that up to 80 degrees. And I've got my thermometer. And it's going to take probably 5 to 6 minutes to bring it up. And again, we're just going in very gently. Remember, the softer, smoother the cheese, the less we mess with it. So we really want to remember that through the whole process. We're making a chèvre, a soft, spreadable goat cheese. So we don't want to be agitating it and stirring often. If I was making a Parmesan or a cheddar, I could just be whisking and stirring. But those soft, spreadable cheeses, we need to go in very, very limited. We really don't want to disrupt the molecular structure of our milk. All right, I think we are good. Let's get a good check. Perfect, 80 degrees. Now it's time to actually start making our cheese. The first thing we have to introduce is our culture. The culture is that mesophilic culture that replaces that guy walking across the desert. It's the ripening. So we've got our culture right here. I usually keep it in little bags. It's just easier because every time you pull it out of the freezer, it's stored in the freezer, it loses just a little bit of its life. So I take that big bag that I buy quite often because I make a lot of cheese, and I put it into little bags that I'm going to keep out when I'm making cheese. Just a little tip. And we're going to use our stainless steel measuring spoon. Because if I had been making a cheese that I wouldn't have, say, for a year or so, a very complicated cheese, more like a cheddar or Parmesan, this would have all been boiled. But I'm not worrying about it now. And I'm just going to sprinkle it in. This goes in pretty much like salt. Nothing to really stress about or worry about. It's going to kind of dissolve in, but because it is freeze-dried, we want to give it a minute to soften before we start stirring it. One thing you're going to notice when I make cheese is that I always turn my spoon upside down after I introduce a product. I have everything laid out that I'm going to use, and that spoon's upside down because I know what I've done. I definitely put that first ingredient in because that spoon is upside down. So let's take a peek. Looks like it is starting to just, rehydrate, so we're going to go ahead and give it a stir in. We're going to use that up and down motion. About 7 or 8 stirs, just enough to disperse it. Perfect. Now we're going to add in the rennet. The rennet, of course, is the coagulant. It is the magic of all cheese making. So we're going to introduce this, but we always have to dilute it. Every recipe you will dilute your rennet. So we're going to use cold water to dilute it. And most of us can use it right from the tap, not a problem. If you're in an area where you really smell a lot of chemicals in your water, go ahead and use a water bottle or filtered water or something like that, because I have been told that it can cause a problem if you have too many chemicals. So we're going to go ahead and get some cold water. In this recipe, we had a ½ gallon of milk. We used an 1/8 teaspoon of culture, and now we're going to use a drop of rennet. 1 drop. This is very powerful stuff. So we've got a drop of rennet into our 1/4 cup of water. And there we go. And we're just going to pour it right into the milk and stir our up and down motion to make sure we fully disperse it in our milk. We all have different ways of doing this. I always do 7 stirs. It's kind of my thing. I like consistency. Consistency in cooking is what's going to make it so that every time you make a cheese, it's pretty similar and you're happy with it. So I know 7 times for me works. All right, so now, believe it or not, we've pretty much made this cheese. We're just gonna take it, put a top on it, set it aside for 12 hours. 12 hours later, hopefully we have curds and whey. 12 hours later, we're ready to take a look at that pot and see if we have curds and whey. I'm ready to work with my cheese, so I've got my hair up because I want to really limit the issues with bacteria and any chef surprises. So we're going to grab that pot, and hopefully we've got curds and whey. Sure enough, we've got beautiful curds and whey. As you can see, the curds are that thick, kind of tofu-y, yogurt-like substance, and the whey is a thin, liquid, watery substance. And that's exactly what you're looking for. And one of the things you're going to discover when you make cheese is that when you're doing it at home, you can't have a guarantee of a time limit. So you'll look at these recipes and you'll be really kind of stressed out. Your recipes are going to say set it aside for 12 to 16 hours or hang it for 4 to 10 hours. And you're going to say, what's that? So really we need to look at what we're looking for. The warmer your environment, the faster the process, because remember, we're dealing with the molecular structure and science. It's bacteria at work. If it's colder, it's going to take longer. If it's very humid and moist, it's going to take longer. So we really want to look for that clear, solid curds and whey. If I had opened this up and it kind of looked like a cup of yogurt where it was still sticking to the sides and just a little bit of liquid on top, even if it had been 16 hours, I would have waited, because what we can't have is whey in our cheese. We have to have a true separation of curds and whey in order to move forward to the next step. Well, we've got that here, so we're going to move forward. We're going to drain these curds and whey by hanging them in the drain bag. So we're going to start off by using our curd catcher. One of the things you want to avoid doing, and it's, we all do it in the beginning unless someone's there to tell you not to, is to take your drain bag and just dump this pot right into a colander, because it looks really innocent, and then all of a sudden you're going to pick it up and go to drain it and nothing's going to happen, and all of a sudden splot, it's going to go everywhere and you're going to end up with curds all over the place. So we really want to watch that, and the easiest way to do that is with your curd catcher or fine mesh strainer. So we're just going to get in here and scoop up these beautiful curds. These are absolutely gorgeous curds. Nice, they smell good, fresh. We're just going to throw them in here. Now this whey, we don't want to waste this. This is, just loaded with probiotics, and it's a wonderful fertilizer. Whey is very high in protein. It's whey protein. People buy it in the grocery store all the time, where it's been hydrated and, dehydrated, sorry. And we need to bring it home. And here you've got natural hydrated whey that you've made yourself without preservatives. You know what's in it and where it's come from. And once we get that initial scoop out, we can go ahead and pour it. We can use this whey to drink. I freeze it in ice cube trays. I even throw it in my daiquiris. Makes me feel a whole lot better about them. You can use it as fertilizer. It can go in your tomatoes, your blueberries. Any acid-loving plant will thrive on whey. All right, so we've got it in here. Looks good. We don't want to worry about trying to push out the whey, squeeze out the whey. We want it to happen naturally. Okay, so we're just going to grab up the sides of the bag. Let gravity do a little bit of the work for us. And then we need to tie it. I choose to use butcher string. I have used hay string, shoestring, anything that you have that's going to tie it and hold it will work. So all we're going to do is take it, and we're going to tie it just like we're tying our shoes. Give a little flip over, because we don't want this hanging down. If this hangs down, it's going to get wet, it's going to drip, it's going to make a big mess. So we're just going to tuck that in. And this is the same principle you're going to use to tie hundreds of cheeses. We do this when we make feta, Monterey Jack, ricotta salata, cream cheese. I tied that good bunny knot just like when we were kids. So we got a good solid hang. So now that we've got this, we've got to let it hang and drain. See all this whey coming off? It's going to take 4 to 6 hours, sometimes even 8. Again, depending on the humidity and the temperature of your house. Don't get frustrated if the recipe says 4 to 6 and in 6 hours you go to look at it and it's not done yet. And we're going to take a look at what a done one, absolutely finished chèvre looks like, and we're going to take a look at one that isn't finished so you know when you open it what you're seeing. And if you open it too soon and you try and move forward, within about 12 to 14 hours it's going to go rancid because that whey is still in there and it's going to go south on you. So it's really important that you give it time to finish. Alright, so now it's time to hang it. And we're going to go over here, and of course we have one ready to go right over here for us. So we have a finished one, but we're going to go ahead and throw this one over there to hang. See all that whey that came off of the other one? There you go. So we've got our pot, everything we used. Little tip you really need to know, this innocent looking yogurt in about 4 hours will turn to hard rocks. So don't walk away and think you'll clean this later. Make sure you rinse it out right now, because right now it's super simple to clean up. All right, let's get this out of our way. Look at all that beautiful whey. That whey is absolutely gorgeous. We can use it chèvre whey, of course, if you're able to get it from a local farm, raw milk, goat milk. It's healthy, it's loaded with probiotics. This is the way I use to drink. A lot of the other ways I choose to use in my garden or just for flavoring, like pasta water, things like that. So we're going to throw this over here, and let's take a look at that chèvre. We're going to use parchment paper. Parchment paper is going to do a couple things for us. One, it's really going to let us see if the cheese is ready. Because if there's moisture in the cheese, the parchment paper is going to let us see that. So we're going to pull down. Oh, we already pulled it down. We're going to grab our cheese and open it up. And hopefully these curds have now turned into cheese. And it's been, I'd say it's been about 6 hours since it's been hanging here. And I haven't done anything. It's just been hanging there. So this was really a pretty simple process. So let's open it up and see what we've got. Well, there you go, the magic of cheese making. We started with the milk. We turned it into curds and whey. We let it sit. We hung those curds. And now we've got cheese. Beautiful, soft, spreadable, delicious goat cheese. Now, I know I mentioned that I was going to show you what it might look like if it wasn't ready. I can see this is ready. This looks beautiful. I'm going to put some gloves on, because one of the things we don't want to do when working with our cheese is use our bare hands, because we've got a lot of oils, bacteria, things like that that get into our hands. I don't buy special gloves, just any kind of glove from the store. So one of the tricks, I make a lot of cheese, so I can see and taste that this is great. But one of the tricks we want to look at is you take that parchment paper and just kind of push down on that cheese. And when I pull it back, if there were puddles of whey, puddles of liquid in here, I would know that it isn't ready yet. And this looks fabulous, and it's totally ready to be finished off. And we finish off our cheese, of course, by salting it. We have to salt it. Remember, salt is a natural preservative. It inhibits mold growth. Of course, it flavors. And it's also going to help get rid of any excess whey that might be hanging out in there. But hopefully, we've already gotten rid of all that. So we've got our cheese. We're going to add a little bit of salt. It's generally, rule of thumb, about a teaspoon per pound of cheese. And you're going to get about a pound of cheese per gallon of milk. And that's pretty standard. Occasionally, if you're getting raw milk, that'll alter depending on the season. So we're just going to mix it in. Another reason why I really, really, really love using parchment paper. We can just mix it in there, get that salt dispersed, move it all around. And now we are ready to do whatever we want with this. This is beautiful looking cheese. So now that we've seen what great cheese looks like, let's take a look at some that I just hung, about an hour or two ago that you might run into and it wouldn't be ready. I can tell right away when I look at this that it's not ready. See this? I've got liquid still coming out of it, okay? That's what you want to look for. You go up and you're like, okay, it's starting to feel like cheese, it looks good, and then all of a sudden you squeeze it and you still got liquid. Right away it tells me we're not ready to go. And that's what you want to look for. A cheese that's finished, the whey will be gone. It will be all in the bowl, and when you squeeze it, you're not going to get any liquid on your hand or on the paper. So that's really the key. Let's go ahead and make some beautiful chèvre logs and get ready to eat this chèvre. One of my favorite things to do with chèvre is to flavor it. So I thought we'd take a minute and just show you some of my favorite recipes. So we've got our beautiful chèvre here. And it's really simple to make logs. You don't need to buy log molds. In fact, I find them more difficult. It's very simple to take your cheese once it's finished and just roll it around in your hands, roll it on your parchment paper, and make a nice smooth log with it. So we're going to make a couple of logs. The first one we're just going to let be plain chèvre inside, and we're going to cover it to make a really pretty chive and garlic cheese. And since I know that I'm going to cover the outside of it, I'm not going to over stress about the perfection in the log. So I'm just going to get a good shape, get some garlic powder. We don't like to use fresh garlic in our cheese because fresh garlic goes rancid very quickly. It's usually only going to last 2 or 3 days before it starts to turn bitter on you. And so it's really a much safer bet to always use garlic powder. Of course, you want to buy it fresh. You know, when you buy those seasonings, don't buy those great big containers. Seasonings don't last for more than a month or two, so just get them small quantities as you need them. All right, so now we're going to add some chopped chives and just toss those around. One of the easiest ways to do it is just throw it down there and roll it in it. Helps shape your log, makes it really pretty. We'll get them all in there. This is a beautiful cheese for the holidays. All right, the next one we're going to do really quickly is my honey lavender. Probably one of the most requested cheeses I make, and it's definitely one of my go-to favorites. Same thing, just going to get some fresh lavender buds. Mix that in, put a little bit of local honey. I get this from a farmer right down the road that has the most amazing bees. And some black pepper. Just mix it in there. Get it all mixed in, and then make your log. The honey can be a little sticky, so don't worry about it. That's why I've got the gloves on. Make a very pretty log. And we'll just drizzle a little bit of fresh honey on there. And we are ready to serve it and eat it. Simple, quick, easy, delicious. Enjoy your fresh chèvre. I want to thank you so much for joining me here in the kitchen at Standing Stone Farms, and I really hope that you've got all the skills necessary to take the wonderful journey into cheese making. Please visit our website, standingstonefarms.com, where we sell all of the cheese making ingredients and supplies you'll need for your home cheese making adventure. Happy cheese making.